It has been a week since I left our home behind. The last days of summer have arrived, and the first whispers of autumn already grace these lands. 4 days ago I first got a glimpse of one of the greatest wonders on the continent of Vindikfill, the neck of the Stonegiants, my first destination on this journey. But I am in no rush to get there. I am trying to take in as much of the beauty of this gorgeous land as I can. I only walk when I feel like walking, and I stop whenever I feel like stopping. "3 days ago I heard the faraway ringing of the storm horns, distant yet powerful, echoing over hill and dale, beckoning caution for winds to come. The sounds of warning steadily grew closer as the other hornposts rung out in answer, spreading the word of a storm drawing near. Only a single blast, probably not the last one of those this season. But a Class 1 storm is still a reason to look for shelter, which I found in one of the many abandoned dwellings scattered around the borders of the valley. Though in the end I did not need it. The storm passed away into the east, beyond the northern hills, and the only thing that roof sheltered me from was a gentle rain. But it won't be easy finding shelter like this again anytime soon, no matter how ruined. Because 2 days ago I entered into the last true wilderness in the heartland of Vindikfill, when I finally crossed the border of the Valley of Giants. At its heart lies the northernmost of the 10 wonders of Tumiun, the 7 spans of Nakusdar, the neck of the Stonegiants. But the neck is not the only bit of history I will find in this hallowed vale. Yesterday I stumbled onto a carving of Uzdu, Lord of the Stonegiants, undoubtedly made by the delvers who have protected this valley for over 1,000 years. My Magrus isn't great, but I believe the Hythal runes under the carving translate to something along the lines of Uzdu, Stonefather, our Lord above the earth, of the earth, and over earth. Return to us, the ones you found, and find your land is free. I do not know how old this carving is, perhaps it was made only shortly after the departure occurred, but I know that the pain is still sharp in the minds of the delvers, and that some have never forgiven the role our people played. I don't think I've ever told you the story of the Stonegiants in full. You used to say it made you sad, so I'd stop before I could ever finish. And I suppose it is a sad story, but maybe it's a good thing to remember the tragic tales, for they are most easily forgotten. There's actually a place I would like to visit on my way to the neck, called the Lake of Sorrows, which would be the perfect place to sit and write a bit about sorrowful things. I'd often thought of taking you there on one of our adventures, but truth be told I deemed this valley too wild, too dangerous to come here with you. I held it off for too long, and now here I am, alone. I suppose that sometimes it's the risks we dared not take that we come to regret the most. Or as the woodsmen say, one must take the path ere the grasses do. Hopefully today's path will bring me to the Lake of Sorrows before the sun sets. If I'm remembering the stories right, the lake lies beside one of the many Doskulim, the giant stone marks scattered along the old march of the stone giants. It was their road every spring and every autumn to and from the far north. As Uzdu led his children through these mountains, carving out the valley the great river now flows through, the Titans constructed piles of huge rocks as a way of marking their route south. Still they stand on the peaks of hills and mountains, scattered throughout this land, as silent witnesses of the might of times long past. Inspired by the stone stacks of the Titans, men and delvers alike have been stacking rocks for ages, using them as waypoints or guides. Today I follow them to a place where that tradition can be witnessed in its full splendor, a place where one can honor the memory of the stone giants, to preserve it. Amidst a crown of barren hills beside the stone stacked high, follow the guides to find the lake where men their sorrows lie. So goes the old rhyme, and so I found it, by the mighty stone stack on a bare brown hill, the Lake of Sorrows. For over 1,000 years this has been a place for travelers to come and show their remorse, their grief. Each stone is a lament to the ones who first started the tradition, the mighty Stonegiants. I laid a stone for them, and for you. Some of these columns may have stood here for decades, withstanding the unrelenting storms that so often ravage this land. They are a testament to the endurance of our goodwill, even when it is not enough to bring back the things we have lost. And when a tower does fall, its stones will scatter and become the building blocks of new ones, reflections of the greater things they once were. But some who come here do not lay these stones as mere tribute to the Titans, but as an act of atonement. A little over 1,000 years ago, the Stonegiants were the gods of this continent, but then men came to Vindikfill a second time. 12 years after the ship of the four founders came ashore in the Horn Bay, the Stonegiants were gone. All that remains now are their wonders, like the rock stacks here built by people whose names and faces none may now remember. But still they stand, the collaborations of hands whose owners will never meet. And though I shall never meet the Stonegiants, looking back I can still see them, standing in the Vale. From the Lake of Sorrows flows a small stream. Following it, I watched it turn to a creek and then to a roaring river. Eventually, its waters will join with the course of the great river, over which the 7 spans of the neck of the Stonegiants stand. As I sit here in this ancient valley, I am beginning to understand why men were so eager to live here. Fresh water, abundant wildlife, fertile soil, and most importantly, the entire valley was inhabited only by the beasts and birds of this land. It was in those times as empty as it is these days. There are no towns within the borders of the valley, no roads, no cities, no houses, not even a horn tower. If a storm this way comes, I will not know it until the wind blows the hat off my head. Few still make the journey through this hallowed yet dangerous valley. It is too wild for most. Only wanderers like me or a traveling Northman clan would visit here. It is likely that I am the only person for miles around. The perfect place for a cup of tea. To the heart of the valley I will go, together only with myself and my walking staff. To the place where the fate of this continent was forever changed. When the 4 founders of the 4 great storm houses came here on the first ship from Stonegiants to Vindikfill, countless others followed in their footsteps. The Delvers welcomed them because the humans brought new knowledge and resources, and preferred living in fields and forests where Delvers seldom settled themselves. They had only one condition. The humans could build their homes anywhere but in the sacred valley of the Titans, a place the mountain folk had kept free from civilization for thousands of years, so that their gods could roam free. But with no other way of communicating, as the 2 peoples did not yet speak each other's language, the Delvers had a rather primitive way of making that condition clear. They would show the settlers a map of the continent, and while marking the valley, illustrate there a house with a cross through it. That imagery seemed to be universal enough to get the point across to the 4 founders, and most of the settlers who followed in those years. But not to the House of Frederick, who came to Vindikfill 5 years after the 4 founders did, with a small host of ships. They thought it meant that no houses had yet been built there, and that it was a place free for them to settle. Their misunderstanding, if it really was one, was as a stone hitting a pond on which ripples can still be seen today. They entered this valley looking to find a place to call their home, but Many of those settlers found their doom instead. They had no idea what dangers lay ahead. Frederick and his kin followed the great river upstream for many miles, as I now do as well 1,000 years hence. They came here in the early summer, when the Stonegiants had already migrated north for the season, so the house of Frederick and its many followers had the valley all to themselves, without a clue of whose home they had entered. They did see the Doskulim scattered throughout the valley, but they thought them to be the ruins of ancient Delver watchtowers. And before long they did notice that parts of the hills they traveled along seemed to be almost broken, as if the rock itself had spontaneously shattered into stones. But when they went to investigate the bare patches to find what had caused them, they found something else instead. Hidden between those rocks were precious gemstones of many different kinds and many different colors. They had found their new home. Their journey had been halted by greed. In a narrow vale along the river, shielded from the howling winds, the humans went to work. Along the banks of the great river, their outposts thrived. According to the tales, this place reminded Frederick so much of his homeland in the north of Sestion that he called the settlement Onsverheim, our far home. As the sun sets on the river, I too think of home. I can almost hear the gulls calling on the misty lake, and your voice calling me outside to watch the sun slowly sink behind the hills. But the prosperity of Onsverheim would not last long. They had settled in the footsteps of gods, who would soon come wandering home again. As autumn approached, they would shortly realize that there were larger things than dragons living in the north of this world. It would have begun with the quaking of the earth, as a rhythm of thunder drawing near. From the northwest they came, with their heads above the clouds, the mightiest beings this world has ever seen. Some of the people fled into the hills and they were able to escape the destruction. Others looked for shelter in nearby caves, but not even a roof of rock could withstand the weight of a marching mountain, and they were lost. When the survivors, with Frederick among them, returned to the ruins of their camp, they found, amidst the broken ground, more of those shimmering stones. As the long dark of winter was drawing near, Frederick rebuilt the settlement, and brought more of his kin to the valley to help in collecting the precious gems. Their operations spread north along the trail of the Titans like fire follows the fuel. When the Stonegiants returned north the next spring, their way was blocked. They were met with spears, and arrows, and flames, and the wrath of tiny beings whose weapons could never hurt them. Their hearts of stone were broken at the sight. The Stonegiants had meant no harm. After all, the man does not see the ants that crawl within the grass underfoot. To avoid further suffering, the Titans went around the camp and issued a warning. A few miles north of the settlement, the Stonegiants raised a gigantic span across the river to warn the people of Onsverheim not to come further. I so wish the tale ended there, but alas, it was only beginning. I shall tell you more tomorrow, but I am tired now, and it is getting too dark to write. Today was the last day of summer, my first summer on my own. The nights are getting long. My back aches from sleeping on the ground, but I much prefer it over feeling how cold our bed was without you in it. Somehow out here I don't feel as alone. And I'm not. The wolves are keeping watch. And the trees are my friends. And the fire keeps me warm. Good night, my love. The first day of autumn marks the feast of Hithercoming for the Delvers, to celebrate the season in which their gods would return home from the far north. This morning I decided to do as the Delvers have done on this day for many ages. I climbed a high hill, and from its head I gazed out into the northwest. They look for the return of the Titans. I look upon my destination. From that high place I could see it clearly, a most magnificent sight. The neck is no more than half a day away. I shall reach it before dark. In that autumn long ago, when the Stonegiants returned from the icy wastes, they hoped to see their valley free again. Instead, they found that the humans had expanded their settlement even beyond the span the Titans had raised in warning. It should have been enough for Frederick and his kin to leave the Vale behind at once, but no, they marveled at the size of the arch and continued their work in its shade. The Stonegiants went around again, and returning home the next spring they gave the humans a second chance. A few miles north of the first one they raised a second arch. But the humans were relentless, and the Delvers failed to realize what was happening in the heart of this wilderness for far too long. By the time they finally did, 6 arches stood over the great river. When the 7th arch was constructed, the continent was on the brink of all-out war. The Titans had given 7 chances, 7 years to listen, but still they refused. That summer, the people of Unsverheim were captured and banished, their settlement destroyed. But it was too late. The Stonegiants never returned, and have not been seen for over 1,000 years. The Delvers have followed their trail as far north as mortals can, but they were nowhere to be found. Some believe that one day the neck will be the key that brings back the Titans. Until that time, this will be their final work. Without us, it would not be here. But long after we are all gone and forgotten again, the neck of the Stonegiants of old will still stand strong.